The Senate is expected to vote this week on a war powers resolution that would block the U.S. from further military action against Venezuela without congressional approval. On CBS Mornings yesterday, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, who filed the bipartisan resolution, called the Trump administration's attack on Venezuela a, quote, illegal action. But House Speaker Mike Johnson pushed back on that claim last night.
We are not at war. We do not have U.S. armed forces in Venezuela, and we are not occupying that country. The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war, that is true. But it also vests the President of the United States with vast authorities as Commander-in-Chief.
Let's turn now to CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, there will be an all-Senate and House briefings tomorrow that will focus on Venezuela and the Western Hemisphere. What can we expect, and what are lawmakers saying about Speaker Johnson maintaining that we're not at war?
Yeah, Lindsay, after that briefing yesterday, pretty much fell on party lines. You heard the speaker there saying we're not at war, so we don't need Congress to weigh in. And that's by and large what we've been hearing from Republicans, except for Rand Paul, who, of course, has long been an outlier in his party. And he is the one that is co-sponsoring that war powers resolution that we'll see a vote on later this week. But tomorrow's briefing will be the first time that all lawmakers are briefed by these top administration officials, and the questions that they have are questions that we all have, which is what is the end game here? The president says that we are now running Venezuela. What exactly does that look like? When does Congress, if at all, need to get involved? Does this require congressional approval of additional funds? Are there going to be troops on the ground? These are the kinds of things that lawmakers want to know and hoping to get answers from the administration on. But today, really the responses are Democrats very critical of these moves and what comes next, and Republicans pretty much giving trust in the administration that this was a targeted event. But of course, this comes against the backdrop of broader questions about U.S. involvement anywhere, and these questions especially as the president has, threatened incursions elsewhere as well.
I can't believe we're talking about this, but Congress is facing another government shutdown deadline on January 30th. The House is also expected to vote on extending the Affordable Care Act's enhanced tax credits. Where do these things currently stand?
Yeah, Lindsay, the to-do list for Congress starting off this year is already very long. You mentioned that government funding bill. They are starting to work through legislation. Now, while government funding runs out at the end of this month, there are funds for certain programs that will last beyond that. So we won't be in the same kind of situation that we were last year when the government shut down. For example, they've already funded through the end of the fiscal year funding for SNAP benefits or food stamps. So we won't be at that kind of cliff. But nonetheless, key programs still need to be funded, and there needs to be agreement on how to do that. And when you mention health care, remember before the holidays, this was a key sticking point, and we saw some Republicans defect and support a longer-term extension, a 3-year extension of Obamacare enhanced subsidies. Now, there are working groups up here on Capitol Hill working on bipartisan pieces of legislation to tackle health care. Those subsidies have already expired. They expired at the end of last year. The question is, how do you address these rising costs? And it was interesting, Lindsay, that when the president was speaking to House Republicans at the Kennedy Center earlier today, he said that health care is going to be a big issue and the Republicans need to own it. So that really speaks to kind of the politics at play here. And notably, he said that they have to be flexible on the Hyde Amendment. This is an amendment that says that the federal government can't provide funds for abortion coverage. That has been a key sticking point among Republicans for supporting any of these health care subsidies, extending them at least. So we'll see if that moves the needle at all, but it was telling that he pinpointed health care as a top issue heading into the midterms.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks so much.